And then when we do public comment, we're gonna wheel that up and I'll just put this on top of it. Okay?
So,
Actually, Eric's gonna present from up there. So whenever, yeah, when we're doing something official, we'll be, one of us will be up there. No. No, you can take pictures of everyone else.
I stole your study, just so you know.
Do you need a copy?
I have it online.
Okay. I've just got a couple more at the desk.
I have one. I can log in now.
I didn't bring my glasses. Wait a minute. You ready? I'd like to call this meeting to order. The meeting of the Joint Plan Commission and Economic Development Commission on Monday, April 22nd at 6:30 PM in the Germantown Village Hall boardroom, and also can be accessed via WebEx. This meeting has been given public notice in accordance with sections 19.83 and 19.84 of the Wisconsin statutes in such form that will apprise the general public and news media of subject matter that is intended for consideration and action. Roll call shows all plan commissioners present except for Mr. Tarantino, who is excused, and Mr. Shadid, who will be joining us via WebEx.
On WebEx.
Thank you, Bill.
Mrs. Yagi is planning on joining us in a couple minutes, and I don't know where Mrs. Higginbotham is.
Okay. Then with that, probably
Mrs. Higginbotham is at the school board meeting.
in his excuse then. Okay, we'll start with new business tonight, starting with new business item A, presentation and discussion of the residential market analysis and strategy planning guidelines, a report by Eric Dorsching, Tracy Cross and Associates, Inc. Before we get started with that, our Director of Community Development, Jeff Retzloff, would like to make some opening comments. Jeff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You will recall that we had a similar meeting set up and scheduled on January 22nd. Unfortunately, because of some technical issues with our virtual system, and we sort of ran out of time, given we had another meeting we were bumping up against. We weren't able to thoroughly get through the report and a question and answer period, so we're effectively doing a redo of the meeting from January 22nd. And at that meeting and tonight, we have Eric Dorsching here, President and CEO with Tracy Cross and Associates, to discuss their findings regarding their comprehensive evaluation of the housing market in and around the Germantown area. As you are aware, the residential market analysis was prepared under the auspices and funding through the Washington County Next Generation Housing Program and Program Committee. As stated in the report, the objectives include determining the depth of the market for residential development in the village of Germantown over the next 5 to 10 years, forward conclusions regarding the marketability of various forms of housing throughout the village in order to meet the needs and demands of area residents, to offer specific design, product, and principal rental rate recommendations for those housing forms that are viewed to have measurable market support now and over the next 5+ years. And I'd go on to say that with respect to Washington County's interests, like a similar market study that was done for the city of Hartford, Washington County was looking for this study to provide information to help evaluate the status of the current market and potential support for the mainstream or middle segment of the marketplace, often referred to as the workforce segment of the housing market. Which is essentially the same market segment of the housing market that the Next Generation Housing Program was created to address. With respect to the village, our interest in conducting this market analysis is to evaluate the status of the current market and support for all segments of the housing market, consistent with and pursuant to our housing objectives and implementation plan in our 2050 comprehensive plan. This market analysis provides the type of information and detail that will prove useful as we move forward developing individual master plans for the various neighborhoods, districts, and corridors throughout the village, and reviewing specific development proposals for new residential development. With that, we're going to have a presentation by Eric and a question and answer period to follow. So with that, I'd like to introduce Eric Dorsching, again, President and CEO with Tracy Cross Associates. Your clicker's already.
Okay. Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, it's much better to be here in person. When you're trying to do a presentation via Teams or Zoom, not only are there technology issues, but also, you just cannot necessarily get across the key findings of a very labor-intensive analysis. I had started out just highlighting the objectives and the assignment goals. But Jeff went through them in detail, and really just to summarize here, our goal as housing economists and residential real estate consultants and market analysts is to provide insight through research and experience to residential development opportunities as they exist. And more importantly, our firm, unlike a lot of other firms, I think what our specialty is that we go beyond just the numbers and outlining what the, demand is and how to penetrate it, but really, kind of an action plan on how you can get there. In this instance, and with what's happening in the Germantown area and surrounding areas, and really is homogeneous of the Milwaukee metropolitan area as a whole and a lot of other parts of the Midwest. The goal here is really, identifying what's happening in the market is one thing, but really how to do something about it is another. And that's what I really hope to leave everybody here with, is some thoughts on how to look at things differently. So here we really dug into both the rental apartment sector as well as the ownership sector, the for sale sector. And our goal wasn't to look specifically at this workforce housing scenario. That for a lot of people, workforce housing can take a negative connotation sometimes. Our goal was to look at the market and market rate housing and where do the opportunities exist and how does the workforce side of it fit into that. We use words like mainstream or middle as opposed to, in addition to the higher end of the market, et cetera, or the luxury market. We use words like that to just identify different components of the marketplace. So you'll hear me talk about mainstream or middle because that's where there's holes existing in this marketplace and really where the opportunities exist. And I think I want to hit on some real critical points of the data that are pretty eye-opening and outlined in our thorough report. And so I put together just a few, after an exhaustive analysis over a few months of really diving into the data, doing our own on-the-ground research, et cetera. I'll start with the rental housing market. This market, if you include the Germantown market area, which is, primarily Southern Washington County and surrounding areas, areas surrounding this, is in a very tight condition. And what we mean by that is vacancies are at or below 2%. Now, in a normal or balanced market, vacancies will be 5 to 6% because that allows for filtering or movement from one development to another, typical turnover. And when you start to see, developments with 100% occupancy, waiting lists that are influencing this really low vacancy, you start to see that there's, an indication of demand. In the Germantown area, there's in both Germantown, where there's been very little new construction, rental housing development done in the last 10 years. But in the surrounding areas where there's been more, that level of new construction in the last 10 years has not been sufficient enough to balance this market or meet demand. Okay, so even though if you look at developments, large and small, there have been 40 of them in Germantown, Menominee Falls, Mequon, going up into Washington County, built in the last 10 years or last 20 years, yet the majority of that occurred in the last 10, and the 10 before that, there was virtually nothing done. So even with what has been built recently in surrounding areas which define this market area, there is a significant opportunity, continues to be a significant opportunity for rental options, Class A rental options. And that's not only a function of what's happening with rental properties right now, but it's also a function of household growth that's occurring in this market area. And 35 to 40% of that are those new households are renters. So it's a combination of trying to penetrate and balance this market in terms of how tight it is, in addition to provide rental options for those new households that are entering the market every year, the new household growth that are in the renter side. So there's a supply issue in terms of rental apartments, and it's outlined throughout the report. The supply issue and so when you look at the rental apartment sector, and this is one thing I want to point out, is that rental apartments or other forms of rental housing, lower density forms of rental housing, build for rent options, et cetera, those can really just function as the others are and be competitively positioned in the market with where other new construction developments are happening, because there's such a short supply. When you get to the for sale sector of the market, that's where this tremendous hole exists for properly positioned new construction ownership housing. And that's where the focus of our analysis kind of went off tackle, because rental housing just, should be made available at where the market rate is, because it is already appealing to the mainstream from, say, this market area's median income is about $85,000. So from 50% of that all the way up to 150% of that medium, rental housing, new construction is already appealing, and we just need more of it in this market area. In the for sale sector, the supply side has gotten so depleted because there, number one, isn't enough new construction development, and what does exist has escalated into the higher price ranges to a point where it's left in its wake a complete void that exists in the new construction sector. And just to give you an example, after I've been doing this now for 33 years, right out of school. Started as a research associate with Tracy Cross, and now the president of the company. So I've been doing it for a long time. And historically, there's usually about a 20% difference between the median or average price of an existing home or a resale home and the new construction sector. It's typically a 20% differential. Any market you look at that's functioning properly. Well, what's happening in the Germantown market area, and again, it's not unlike other areas, is there's now a 50 to 60% differential between where resales are priced and new construction. So the lack of new construction properly positioned is putting extreme pressure on the resale market, and its disjointedness is being felt throughout the market in terms of supply everywhere. And so I think one of the most telling things of our report is how do you circle back and try to bridge this tremendous gap that exists between where new construction closings are occurring and where the resale market is and what's being left, in its wake. And just to give you an idea, And this is these are derived demand numbers, which are, it's outlined the methodology in the report. But essentially, the Germantown market area, again, Germantown and surrounding areas could absorb, if there was properly positioned product, 5,000 or more housing units over the next 5 years. Okay. Now it's a pretty broad geographic area, but still, these numbers are based upon what the household growth is going to be, how to, bring in, how demand is being influenced by the tightness of the market, the lack of supply and pent-up demand. And there's upside to this too in terms of spillover, because, the first, I would say, let's just use Northwest Milwaukee as an example, the first municipality in this general area to provide a solid strategy for hitting certain price points in the for sale sector is going to undoubtedly triple the sales volumes that you're seeing in a typical subdivision and induce spillover from other areas. So the growth is going to be significant if you can actually figure out a way, and that's what we're here to help you with, to get the price points that will appeal to the bulk of the market relative to their incomes. This is a really good example of what's happening here. So these are two qualitative distributions, and the one on the right is, and we did this study toward the end of last year, beginning of this year. And so this shows all new construction closings in the Germantown market area over the last 12 months, okay, if you can see it. And with a median price of $511,000, okay? So that's the median of every closing that occurred. If you just take demand, what true demand is, and you use one variable to qualitatively distribute it, and that's by taking out lower incomes, okay, any lower income household, you just take that out and look at what is the true ownership sector, what are their incomes, homeowners, and in terms of qualifying for an entry-level home in the resale sector, and you qualitatively distribute their incomes, you can see how demand falls well below where the supply side of the equation is. In fact, there's a difference. If you actually were to introduce and try to penetrate and meet the demands that exist, you would want a median sales price closer to $400,000 than exceeding, $511,000. And this isn't for just single family detached housing. This is for all for sale housing. So it includes condominiums, townhomes, villas, as well as single family detached. And really this exercise was meant to show, and there's a lot of other areas of our report when you look at it that show the disparity that exists between the new construction sector and where those units are priced these days, and where the demand is based upon incomes. Now, we understand, okay, because we work with many builders and developers, that's as well as municipalities and other governmental bodies, but working with developers and builders, we certainly understand the challenges of and costs associated with land acquisition, land development, construction costs, especially stemming from, the coronavirus pandemic and what's happening out there. But while we understand that and we see and are sensitive to that, what is happening is those costs are being passed along and things are being done really as they always have been in the new construction sector in this market with higher price points. And what is occurring is just very modest sales volume. The typical development will sell 12 homes a year, when a properly positioned development could be doing 3 or 4 times that number in terms of its volume. So, but easier said than done because the cost side of the equation is real. Okay. So it's very real. And so, after going through, understanding the economics, the demographics, the incomes, the competitive marketplace, Really, the goal and our recommendation for this this group here and for this analysis was, how do you really meet the demands? Well, that is to understand and create a true hierarchy of primarily mainstream housing products. What I'm going to show you now in our recommendations and what is highlighted in here is really where the highest level of demand is, okay? There's still demand for what's being done in Germantown and surrounding areas as is, okay? There's still demand for the higher end of the market. There's no doubt about it, but our goal here was, okay, how do we maximize market penetration? And that really is going after, number one, a rental housing market that's undersupplied, and number two, a new construction for sale market that has gotten out of whack. So really our guidelines were to create a true hierarchy of product, and that's what we provided. And I want to share with you an understanding of that in a second, to work closely, very closely with builders and developers so that these new communities can be strategically positioned to fill the voids that exist in the market, and for the builder developer benefit, generate sales volume that are or absorption rates that are much higher than what they're accustomed to. This will take thinking differently in terms of land planning, development, product design. It's going to be critical. And even with a very disciplined approach to land planning and product design, there may be some incentives needed to help get to this point. So it's, I put a conductor on this graph because the orchestration of this, it will be an arduous task to actually achieve what can be achieved here, because 6 to 10 different things have to come together. It's not just one thing. Hey, we have a piece of property that we can help subordinate. We want to get somebody in there. It won't be just that, because the cost of new construction housing has gotten so high that one thing won't be enough. It's got to be a combination of factors, and it's got to be a partnership between the municipality and the builders and developers. I want to talk about product and land planning, okay? And again, very, very typical for the majority of the Milwaukee metropolitan, suburban Milwaukee, and this market area in particular. You see a lot of the same things. Larger lots, single-family homes, some duplex condominium development in the form of ranches targeting the empty nester, and then product differentiation beyond that is you'll find a little bit of here and there, but really that's what this market is, until you maybe get downtown Milwaukee. But we're not talking about an urban area. We're talking about the suburban landscape. And I cannot emphasize this enough. And we've seen other builders really latch onto this concept and see a major reduction in their direct construction costs. And that's, the efficient and cost-effective design of the plans. And now, no wasted space in the plans. And we're not talking, we talk about box-on-box construction, but we're talking about what's hidden inside the home, not what the home looks and feels like, or what the neighborhood portrays in terms of its aesthetics and its curb appeal. And I'm going to show you some examples later on, but basically, builders have to start offering products without standard basements. It's one of the things that is, even though this market is so used to it, they need to be optional so the consumer can choose, because there is a whole glut of income qualifying homeowners out there who would consider new construction and would certainly be willing to sacrifice the basement if it assists. And this is one of the many things I'm talking about in bringing a price point down to where, the demand truly is. It's about pushing densities, okay? And, you know, that too can be a four-letter word sometimes because, you know, we're not talking about something that's, you know, grossly dense, but just being strategic in terms of, you know, how density is viewed and how you can spread the land cost or the, you know, across more units. And that's one other aspect of reducing the cost side of the equation. You know, things like strong use of colors versus complicated architecture, costly materials. You can see a very, you know, very aesthetically appealing houses and desirable houses that are done with a color palette that's unique and versus, you know, mandates for a certain amount of masonry, et cetera. So there's, and then there's community design and community development, you know, things that can be done there in terms of size or scale to provide economies of scale. You know, just to give you an example, and I'll show you in a second, you know, how good some of these look. You know, just four-corner construction is very typical. This is a rear entry townhome development that's, you know, can have a very contemporary, a very traditional or conventional elevation, but it's done in such an efficient manner where the garage is completely under the unit. It's, you know, it's basically four corners so that the construction costs are, you know, kept as low as possible. Here's two different ranch plans. You can see one that's done very efficiently as opposed to one with, I think if you count it up, you know, there's like 13 total corners. It's about thinking through not just an individual plan, but a whole product line of efficiency. And again, not sacrificing the curb appeal, but simply doing what is necessary in terms of design. And there's a lot more elements to value engineering, and it's unfortunately, that's just one element that is required to get to that graph I showed you earlier where housing should be positioned. Really, this is a summary. There's 7 tables in our section 1 of our report that are very detailed, plan by plan. We show some pictorial representations and prices and absorption, but this is really a summary of 4 generic, or 7, 4 in the for sale sector, 3 in the rental, that we've recommended, and kind of just an overview of where they need to be priced to generate these, you know, these sales volumes. We're recommending garden apartments, which is 2-story, very appealing with attached garages on the lower level for a portion, 50% of the units. Ranch villa rentals with both 1 and 2 car. They're like the duplex condominiums that you see, but in, you know, 4 or 5 unit building with both 1 and 2 car garages can elevate very well, and also single family rentals. Because that particular product form is in high demand, especially given the lack of new construction, properly priced for sale housing. That can run concurrently with other forms. Here we have townhomes, row homes, and what we're calling in the for sale sector, ranch villas. These are all 2-car garage products. This is really where the prices need to be. It's essentially $270,000 to $450,000 is where you can make the biggest impact and where the void exists in this marketplace. The 450 to $1 million can continue to operate as it is. And again, there you see volumes though of 8 a year, 9 a year, 10 a year in our survey, maybe up to 12 units per year on the typical average development. Now, again, these products are not, they're not to be done in, you know, in a distasteful way. You know, these are garden apartments and you know, like an example rental ranches and rental single family, the row homes, townhomes, instead of doing duplexes, doing 4 or 5 unit buildings of 2-car garage ranch condominiums to help improve the density and bring the land costs down. Then there's both rear load garage and front load garage, single family detached on smaller lots. And, I know that the smaller lot scenario, and I'll just, I'll speak from other concerns we've seen with other municipalities where the smaller lot side of the, side of the fence is often frowned upon. But I wanted to show you this. I tried to portray it as best as possible. So just trying to pick an example of where something like this has been done before. There's a development north of Indianapolis called Harmony in Westfield, Indiana. So it's been there about 6 years, or almost 5 years. And what they did, and yes, this is big enough where they have a major rec facility that you see in the front here with pickleball and swimming pool and a clubhouse, et cetera. But the point is, on small conventional lots, like the 2 that we recommended, they create these aesthetically appealing houses. Now, the conventional front load garage, 2-story and ranches with nice elevations. Now, these get a little complicated with the roofs, and that can be changed, but these were they realized those were going to be over the $400,000 mark. So how can we get into the low 300s? Well, they introduced a complimentary rear load garage product where these are on 40-foot wide lots, and it's got a Allen system that feeds it. But this community is absolutely beautiful, and they were able to come into the northern portion of Indianapolis, where prices in Carmel, if you've heard of it, and Fishers had escalated in Westfield, and introduce a price point with a differentiated way of thinking about the product. Now, what you don't see on here over here is they also have townhomes, they have ranch villas. So this is a whole master plan community creating this hierarchy of product that really, it's almost done now, but it really hit the overall qualitative distribution of demand in terms of incomes by thinking differently. Here's what an aerial, this exact pod here, but this is an aerial of, what do we got? I think 12 rear load single family, and they have different pods like that. And that was done on 3 to 4 acres, where you get 12 homes like that. And what the developers of Harmony did was they said, okay, if we're going to do a small lot, get away from large lot, do a small lot rear load, they said, we are going to make sure that a park or open space or a playground area for our families are within,
When you step away from this microphone, please use that one. They can't hear you over the.
they can't hear me?
No, not people that are watching and are tuning in.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
Okay, so, let's see, where was I? Yeah, so the developer said, we understand they're only going to get a small patio area on the side of the house or very limited backyard space. But what's the trade-off? Number one, you'll get consumers that otherwise are disenfranchised by the prices of conventional housing. And 2, we're going to make sure that within a block of their home, wherever these pods are put in there in a master plan community, they can walk to open space or a playground or park. So there's an offset. And the unit sizes, again, for the smaller homes were carefully thought out to stay in the more modest ranges, but also to do 1,600 square feet in the most efficient way, 1,500 square feet where you still can get 3 bedrooms and 2.5 baths, but yeah, your 2 secondary bedrooms may be 10 by 10, but the finishes and feature and the overall feel of the elevation really, made up for that, especially when it opened up a price point that didn't exist. And so, you know, this is just an example of how a development can be done by thinking differently. What has not occurred in suburban Milwaukee for a long time is attached for sale housing, with the exception of ranch condominiums, okay? Whether it's duplexes primarily, you might see some fourplexes. You'll see Cornerstone Development doing their 4-unit pinwheel, which is an excellent product, but always geared toward the higher end. Well, now there's an opportunity to, introduce 10 to the acre townhomes where the consumer, because it's happened in other markets, will recognize that the only new construction alternative at their price point is an attached product. There's going to be sacrificing on the part of the consumer, but they will see the value because there are no other alternatives in the marketplace for them. So essentially, and again, I want to open it up for question and answers, but it is a very common tale right now on what's missing in the market. In Germantown and surrounding areas, though, I think the disparity that exists between where existing home prices are and new construction is a lot wider than other areas, meaning new construction is going so high that there's, again, in one instance, we found a 70% differential between a median closing price and of an existing home and a new construction, which is just too wide to be penetrating where people's incomes truly are. So overall, our study was very objective and unbiased. We were not looking to, if we had entered this market and said, wow, what's being done is doing great. I mean, sales are, 30 to 40 a year at every subdivision, but that wasn't the case. Prices have gone higher, sales are lower. They're considered modest by most standards, and there's this tremendous hole that exists in the market, really for $275,000 to $450,000 for sale product, both attached and detached, and that just more rental housing forms are needed, especially in Germantown, where you haven't seen the introduction of a rental housing community since I think 2018, and only 2 in the last 15 plus years. So anyway, that's kind of a summary of, and again, the report, obviously, if you've been through it, is very, very detailed in terms of what the specific recommendations are, but let me open it up to any questions. Yes.
Right, whoa. Wait. We're gonna open questions or comments at the end of the meeting, but first of all, he meant to the dais. To those that are on the dais. Trustee Pieper. Oh, no problem.
So
Back to that question.
do your thoughts change at all if we're headed into a housing market crash? I know it's not predicted for 2024, but possibly 2025 and 2026. What do you anticipate with a housing market crash, and how would that affect this study?
Yeah, so we don't foresee a crash, a housing market crash.
Well, it's inevitable.
What?
It's inevitable. Eventually, it's going to happen.
Yeah, not when you have a market that has already slowed so dramatically. Okay.
But it's slowed because of high interest rates right now, so it's
And
more
higher
attractive to
prices.
not
And
move.
higher prices, right?
Yes.
So following these recommendations, it would completely offset any downturn, completely, 100%. But again, It would. I mean, you know, there would be no, when you're dealing with filling a void in the market, the market can drop and there's still going to be, you're going to capture a disproportionate share of a shallower base of demand. There'll be no negative impact. I mean, if there's a housing market crash, what's currently existing will just slow even further. But it wouldn't have a tremendous effect on filling these voids, considering there's nobody doing it.
Okay, I also looked up the place in Indianapolis. It looks like that subdivision that you displayed was built by Lennar. Is that correct?
No, Estridge.
Estridge?
Yeah.
Okay,
Estridge Group.
so it looks like the subdivision and the houses were built with very low quality materials and craftsmanship.
No, you
So,
must have been looking at it. I mean, you just you can see the quality.
but with the price of materials being really high right
You
now,
can see the quality of the housing,
Right,
the elevations, the material.
yeah, we can't have calling out. This is a quorum. This is a meeting that's been called to order, and I would ask you to respect that and not make comments out of the audience. Truly, please. Give the man his due and let him talk.
Yes.
by looking at the picture, you can't see what their roof was built with or what their drywall was hung with, or if there's leaks in the garage or plumbing problems or drainage issues or landscaping issues, or the brick doesn't match, what was on the front of the house or.
Yeah, well, I don't know where that's coming from, but the point of Harmony was how to create differentiated price points through product design, land planning, without sacrificing the quality. If there's issues, relative to that, that's not the point of the example. It's more so on how to actually create quality and density.
Well, how is that possible when the price of materials has gone up and we anticipate it to go up even more?
Yeah.
To build a house that is affordable, that is actually built correctly, and we know how hard it is to find construction workers or craftsmen that can actually build a house correctly.
Yeah.
Because if you want one of those experts, then you're going to need to pay a whole lot more. I'm just struggling to figure out how this could actually be affordable or in the price range, because if my house burnt down right now, it would cost way more than what my house is worth to rebuild it.
Yeah, so you remember what I mentioned at the beginning, and I'll try to encapsulate this and articulate as best as possible. It is a combination of things that are highlighted throughout the report. Number one, you've got to save on the land. Okay, so and again, these are recommendations for how you can fill the void that exists in the market. Okay, there are recommendations on how you could fill this void and improve the volume of sales activity and fill a need that exists in the market. It's it's how to do it. It's where the void exists and how to do it, but it's a combination. So number one, there has to be some incentive on the land, okay, or some type of concession. That's number one to bringing the cost down. Number two is improving of the densities to spread whatever land costs there is or development across more units. Number three is efficiency in design. And that is really working with the builders, developers, them working with their subs to understand that you can take $20 to $30 out of a home just by designing it efficiently. And it's not lack of quality. It's doing room dimensions by how drywall is naturally cut, so you don't have to cut it. It's a million different things like that that's value engineered. So that's another component that has to come into it. It's also creating a hierarchy of product that includes both attached and detached smaller lot to do this. So it's and then it could possibly involve a TIF. And I'm not recommending that. I'm just saying that it's a reality. I'm just telling you, if you want to achieve it, okay, we're not telling anybody they have to do anything. We're saying, here's where your opportunity is. Here's where the hole is in the market. And here is how you would have to look at it from a combination of things to get there.
And I understand that, but when the cheapest piece of land that is 0.3 acres for sale in Germantown is 135,000, how are you going to build a house with less
Well, the
than?
first thing I said is there's got to be an abate. There's got to be.
So when we don't currently have it, then what do you do?
Create it.
Well, then you won't get there. You won't get there. It's a
And
combination of.
Germantown has an ordinance that north of Freistadt Road, lots have to be at least 5 acres large in order to build. So that cuts out pretty much half of Germantown. And the rest of the half has already been developed. So
Well, I think you're looking, so, and rightfully so, you're looking at what you have or don't have, what's in place or not. And we're saying that there is a void in the Germantown market area for properly priced. I mean, the median closing price of the single family homes we surveyed right now is over $700,000. Okay. Now there's a market for that, true. But if you want to meet the demands based upon the market's income, qualitative distribution, it's to think differently, meaning, how do we do it? And that's what we've presented here. This is how you would do it. Doesn't mean you are going to do it or have the ability, but if you really want to penetrate the market, it's a combination of factors that'll get you there.
so
Now,
are you
in-
saying
in-
to
in
take
other
down
markets,
some of the
like-
decaying?
Say that again?
So are you saying to take down some of the decaying apartments or areas of the village and revitalize them with newer, low density?
Okay, that would depend on how is that land value going to benefit the process of getting the cost down. So we're not saying to do that or do one thing or the other. It's like if the municipality really wants to address the, and people have overused the missing middle, but it's true. If you want to address it, it can't be done with just one quick, wave of the hand. It's a combination of factors that will get you there. And the identification is real, that the demand is there, okay? You can go about the same old recommendations or planning as you always have, and that's fine, but that means, 20 to 30 home sales per year throughout the municipality when you could be, 250 to 300. And so it's, again, we're not telling you have to do this. It's where the opportunity exists. Yes.
Mr. Heffley.
Thank you. Very good information. I actually reviewed this market analysis about 4 times and make sure I didn't miss anything. But I think the challenge, I have a background in economics, the challenge is not just supply and demand, but cost of supply and demand. So in the study, it says that Germantown costs $50,000 more than anywhere else to do the same things, whether it be, other areas of Washington County or in the primary market area. So that to me is the bigger challenge. And I know I see a couple local realtors here, and they probably tell you it's more than 50 grand to build in Germantown. And there's a huge disparity between, let's say, us and Kewaskum, us and Slinger, Hartford, which is why they're building the higher density things. It's actually affordable, and you don't have to go through, zoning code, redoing your muni code. There's a lot of work that would need to be done for even us to consider it. So what I'm struggling with is the pure economics, where no matter what we do, it's going to cost way more than anywhere else. And so that's the caution probably some of the residents have, can we do it? What do we have to do to get it done? And the fear is, I think it's going to fall on the taxpayers to help subsidize this, because we can't get our land costs down. They've been bid up for the last 20 years by the developments we've done. The land costs are through the roof. Germantown's not going down. I believe overall, our market went up 12% last year for existing homes
Right.
or new builds. So the 12% is not going away, whether it's 7, 8, 9, that's way above, the overall 30-year average of about 4.5 on a house that you own. So we're kind of stuck in a good quandary, but a quandary, and I think we'd have to move mountains to actually make something economically feasible, and that is my comment.
Yeah, and go ahead, Jeff.
No, you can respond.
Oh, you were raising your.
No, you respond. I have a follow-up question.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, we're aware of that, and that's why, again, and I'm being repetitive, but finding a piece of property that's either village-owned or that's that's underutilized or something that can have a very low, if not a zero land basis is almost required to make this happen. Okay. And so, does the village have that? Is there the possibility? If you cannot, it depends what the village wants to do. If you want to meet the demands that exist, and are void, that's up to you. And it's, again, we could have come back and said, okay, and we did. There's a paragraph in the report that says Germantown can function exactly like it's functioning at the upper end of the market. You can continue to do that. That's fine. But if you want to actually fill a void that exists in this marketplace, this is what you have to do. And that void is so blatant. And that's what that's what we really were trying to convey here.
Other questions?
Check out a follow-up.
Mr. Retzloff?
How do you address those that feel that the primary market area that forms the basis for your study is too large and includes areas like North Washington County, Ozaukee County, Menominee Falls, and isn't accurately representative of Germantown, where, for example, the primary market area, the median income is like 85,000 in the report. There are some sources that say Germantown alone, the median income is 91,000. So it's all kind of relative, isn't it?
It is, but Germantown's unique location has the ability to draw from a much broader geographic area than itself. There is no doubt about that. So if you were to not, and you're including areas of Mequon, and you're including areas of Menominee Falls, and yes, you're also going into areas of Washington County to the north. But overall, if we had refined it even tighter, it would have been the same story. And so really to have the market area in terms of sheer population to understand what the community's draw potential is, it's actually accurate.
I have a question. So when you're looking at creating a development or an area where you're setting a median of $275,000 to $400,000 for the price of a home, and those, let's say there's, for the sake of just an example, there's 200 of them, and 200 of those sell out in the next 2 to 3 years. What does that do to the sale or comparables when other housing units that are higher in cost? Does that drop those, or does it
No.
just
No, because you
relate
have
to those that are
realize,
similar size?
the comparables will have things that these don't, even though they're quality homes. This is not, we're not advocating true production housing like you'll see in other markets, like even the Chicago suburbans. You'll see true production housing by like D.R. Horton, Pulte, Lennar. These homes most of them won't have basements. So that's a differentiating element. They'll also be smaller in square footage. They won't have the third car garage that, so the upper end of the market is always protected. This just happens to fill a void, but there's, the way you're getting there is also with a reduction of things to the consumer.
You see along the surrounding areas that's kind of west of us along, or outside of Madison, you see more developments like your bottom left-hand corner than you see of your whole top half of that current slide you have up. I've seen more of those communities come through that look like that than look like the one that's above.
I don't quite understand. In Madison,
In the Madison area, they seem to be putting more of these type of communities in.
those, you mean?
Mhm.
Yeah, I wouldn't say they're putting more of them, but they certainly are understanding that the only way they're gonna meet a price position is, with, the rear load garage product. And plus, Madison is very neo-traditional oriented, traditional neighborhood development, you know, the mantra of creating neighborhoods where the front porch is the focus, not the garage, on small lots and open space, et cetera, has been kind of at the forefront of their planning mechanism, both in the city of Madison and surrounding areas for a while. So I think that's why you'll see more of it. But you still see, you know, Madison has the same challenges, but they're actually bridging the gap a little better, with generic product forms like that. And I mean generic, I mean not generic, but with a lower density, a higher density product.
Okay. Bill Shadid, who's joining us via WebEx, has a question. Bill, do you have a question?
Yeah, I sure do. Can you hear me all right, or is it over blasting there?
No, we can hear you. You're a little soft, so just kind of
Oh,
speak up.
okay. Well, last time it was a little loud. Okay, I kind of agree with Ms. Piper and Mr. Hafley on a couple of items here. Number one, it looks like to me that the differentiation between where you see this market for a $250,000 house as averse to a $450,000 house, boy, that's a lot more than taking out the basement, and I even think it's a lot more than just putting on small lots. I agree with Ms. Piper with $100,000 current price for lots. I don't see how we're going to do this. It sounds to me a little bit like we're going to go to Ford Motor Company and we're going to say to them, if you want to sell houses or if you want to sell cars in Germantown, we need them to be $15,000 to $20,000 or you can't sell here. I don't see it as much different. I don't disagree with your ideas that it could make a difference for us. I just don't see a way that we can do it. Now, you go to what Mr. Hafley says, and I kind of agree that one of the areas there could be taxpayer support, but as a taxpayer, I'm not really willing to do that. I don't know that many others in the village would agree either. So this is the real conundrum we have here. It would be nice, but I don't see any way for us to get there. I just don't see it.
Well, just keep in mind that when you say 250,000,
Well,
there's no
was comparing
single family
the-
homes we're pricing at that. That's for a row home product line like this, okay? Where, you know, has a density of 12 units per the acre. It's a staple for sale product line throughout the Midwest. It just hasn't entered the Milwaukee market. It's here a little bit, but not the way it can be to hit a certain price point. So let's say you have an infill site of in an area, you know, where you can do 60 of these on a 4 to 5 acre parcel. It'd be great because you should be able to, depending on how you combine all the things to bring the price down, price that in the, you know, basically 275 to 325. That's what that price point is. So we're certainly not recommending, there's no way to do a single family home at 250,000 new construction.
But I don't even see, are you suggesting though that on your one chart there, the one you started with, you have this range where the two columns on the left compared to the two columns on the right, they cross over at 400,000 to 450,000. All right, in order to get from that place down to that first line or two of under 250 or up to 299,000, you could actually make that much difference on what you suggest?
Yeah, so I pulled that graph up. Essentially, when you look at people's incomes, here's some townhomes, Here's some, additional, and people call them condominiums, but we're talking about the product form. Townhomes, ranch villas, small lot, single family, conventional single family, and here's what Germantown currently is, the rest of the market. But if you want an additional penetration of a demand base that's not being, it's 2 attached products to hit these 250 to 350 and 2 new single family products to hit the 350 to 450. That's essentially what it is. And then what Germantown currently is this. And that's still there. But do you want a larger penetration of where demand is by income? That's up to you. It's just, it exists.
I still just don't see, even if you talked about a fourplex, okay, we had 4 as a condominium. In comparing that, I just don't see that much difference, no matter what you do. I just don't see it as being able to be financially possible to do.
Well, right now, all the fourplexes are done with basements. We're saying don't do them with basements. That's, just one example. Number 2, we have more modest unit size, still the appropriate bedroom bath mix, but so, and then it's all the other factors with efficiency and design, whether it's, and whatever can be done with the land basis. And again, that may seal the deal for a lot of things because that can't be done. It's just one of the many things to get to that price point. Now, I can tell you we can use suburban Chicago there because there's a large representation of national home builders. They hit price points below what I've shown you, actually, for Milwaukee. But they have the wherewithal to buy appliances at mass discounts and stuff. So they have that, but you'll actually see prices in Chicago that don't exist in this whole marketplace in suburban Chicago because you have the presence of national home builders. Here you don't have the ability to do that. And plus, Germantown may not like what they have to offer, okay, because of their steady state production mentality. That may not be something you like, but I can tell you they're hitting the price points and they're in a market where, it's been, just terrible for so long. When they hit that 200 to, let's call it 200 to 450, they sell 4 to 5 homes a month at each subdivision. So it's about, your growth. If you want to, promote volume, improve volume, and, all of that at the end of the day has an impact on the, on the economy locally.
Well, I will leave it with this. I don't fault your ideas for what needs to happen to grow. What I think is a problem is how we would go about making it happen.
I agree, because that's why I started.
I'm okay to be convinced. You can convince me, but I don't see it right now.
Well, I can only convince you if we actually sat down and had a working session and I saw if Germantown wanted to pursue this, what does the municipality bring to the table first and foremost? And then we pull in the developer and the product, and how do we convey what needs to be done, that's different. And, getting the buy-in from them, and how it would be that entire process to make this happen.
Well, I guess I would come back and
You're
ask.
giving me a bottle of water.
Yeah. Is that what we want to do? Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, whoever thought of this.
Director Etzloff?
So I'm looking at current marketing information for 2 subdivisions in the village of Germantown, our 2 most recent subdivisions. Heritage Park North, that has lot sizes that are available between approximately 15,000 to 20,000 square feet. They have floor plans that they're offering starting 1,766 square feet, 3-bed, 2-bath, $558,000 starting price. Another model, 1,820 square feet, starting at $521,000. And a 4-bed, 2.5 bath, 2,238 square foot model, starting at $552,000. Renwood, a similar size development, lots in the 15 to 22,000 square foot range. I don't have home model prices, but I have lot prices that the lowest price is $143,000 for a 22,000 square foot lot, up to $164,000 for a 16,000 square foot lot. So the lot prices alone are 150 and above. But the deed restrictions require a minimum 1,900 square foot ranch and 2,200 square foot 2-story. And at construction cost prices of $250 per square foot and higher, we're easily into, and I know from some of the models that they're selling over $650,000 to $750,000. Those are the products that are being developed in a large measure because that's what our zoning code allows. We have zoning districts that allow lots as small as, hold your breath, 8,000 square feet. But we've chased away every developer since I've been here for the last 17 plus years that have proposed anything under 15,000 square feet.
Check one.
So one of the things that we can do when Eric talks about, the village having some skin in the game is to look at our zoning regulations, our subdivision regulations, and tweak those to a point that could allow the sorts of products at the price points that are explained in the report. I mean, that's something we can do. And frankly, it's something that we should do. We call for it in our 2050 plan, in our housing policies and programs. And it's something that we need to take this to the next step to look into what we can do zoning code wise to accommodate different housing products that can be more affordable and can achieve and satisfy some component of that missing middle workforce housing component. I mean, when we talk about the current median income in the village of Germantown being 91,000 and trying to provide housing for 50 to 150% around that, let's not forget that median of 91,000, that's in the middle. We have people who live here who are in the 50 to 60 to 70 to $80,000 income already. And we've talked to people. We've had people come forward in our surveys that ask, yeah, it's nice to have the sort of neighborhoods that we have, but sure would be nice if there were some neighborhoods with smaller lots, smaller homes that we could afford to live here and stay here and grow up in the community that we were raised by our parents. So we can do some things. We don't have control over building material costs, but we can control, in effect or indirectly, the cost of the land. I mean, we have Kinderberg Parks Estates was a good example. They proposed 30 units on the same, I forget how many acres we had. And we slowly chipped away and whittled away based on public opinion down to 18 units, about half of what was originally proposed. And because of that, the developer, did away with their whole goal of trying to provide the $350,000 to $400,000 house. And they were selling for, I don't even know, but over $600,000, $800,000. I thought there was one that was close to $900,000 that sold in the last 2 years. I mean, frankly, that's borderline ridiculous in my opinion.
Mr. Sedgwick.
You made the comment that we could do nothing and we'd be fine. I'd like you to expand on that a little bit, because my concern with that, if you give me a second, my concern with that is that your statistics said that we have an aging population, right? So what's happening is we're all happy in our homes and we're going to stay here until we retire. But the next generation, I have 2 young adult daughters. They don't live here because they can't necessarily. Maybe they could, but just as an example, somehow we have to find a way to cycle new blood into the into the village, or it's going to die eventually. If you don't do anything new, if you don't change, you move backwards or you die. There's other communities around us like River Hills, Mequon, where they have had very rigid policies and they're dying. Their school districts are dying and they recognize it, and it might be too late for them to recognize it. So what do we do now so that we don't maintain the status quo, but we are able to move forward and keep a healthy balance in the village?
Yeah. So first of all, I didn't mean to say you can do nothing and be fine. To reiterate, you can do nothing and your housing market will continue to function at the rather lethargic rate that it's functioning at. It'll be status quo, put it that way. Okay. If you want to meet the demands of the market and allow not only to, create product opportunities, new construction product opportunities for everybody, okay, or at least for income qualifying homeowners, okay, not everybody, but then you have to follow these guidelines. It's attracting the young. It's the thought process is to attract the for sale side of it is to attract the young families, okay, the young couples who are in their initial stages of family formation, to provide product that's going to be very cost effective for move down empty nesters, okay. This whole product continuum, as I mentioned earlier, creates that hierarchy. What I meant earlier is if you do nothing, this is for the market area, you continue to capture your fair share of where 35% of demand is located. You'll capture your small fair share. And after, reading the prices, and we put all those statistics in, we know where closings are occurring here in Germantown, and it's why there's no significant volume. Why the sales aren't, significant in the scheme of things. And
so just a follow up to that, the word rental housing in Germantown has been a dirty word for far too long. I think you've pointed out there just hasn't been new product built in the last 10 years.
It's a dirty word in a lot of municipalities.
So
too bad, because
but the problem is we create our own problem, and some people on this panel have heard me preach about this before, but we create our own problem. We don't like multifamily housing because our multifamily housing stock is deteriorating because we don't ever introduce any new competition to it. So it can be not as good as it should be, and they can still collect the rents that they need to be successful. But if we had a healthy balance of multifamily housing being built to introduce some healthy competition in the market, I think all of it would be better.
Yeah. And I think one myth is that all rental housing products over time turn into slums or whatever you want to call it, okay, or just become dilapidated, or they're just, and that's not true. If you build Class A housing, it can maintain its Class A status over time. I mean, there's Class A developments built 30 to 40 years ago that have maintained that. There's others that were done, in the 60s and 70s that were done in such a way that they were new construction at the time, but they weren't, as forward thinking as some of the Class A products now that exist, since the housing crash of 2008, most municipalities who would not entertain a thought throughout the Midwest of rental housing figured out a way to bring quality rental product to their marketplace, and it remains today. And they continue to offer it. There's demand for it. Again, I'm just showing you where the opportunities exist and where demand is. The whole suburban rental apartment market, even though there's been so much development throughout suburban Milwaukee, it's still undersupplied because there was a period of 20 years where very little was introduced. So you have this huge gap in time and age and quality of product that is continuing to create demand in this marketplace.
Trustee Hudson.
So first, I'd like to thank you for driving up tonight and presenting this, and I, so this is a reaction to and I'd ask that people please allow me some latitude with word choice. This is a reaction to a perceived problem or how to do something. And I think I have a bigger question that is maybe more for the people up here. And that question is what is Germantown in 20 years, in 30 years, and in 50 years, and how many people live here? I don't see anything fundamentally wrong with the Germantown of today. And I'm not so sure that without a lot of discussion, we're going to be able to get to a Germantown that has 30,000 people, which is only 8 or 9,000 more than we have today. So when we think about things like this, we also have to think about, we're going to have to build another elementary school. We're going to need more schools for this. We're going to need another fire department. We're going to need to expand our police and our fire department in terms of personnel. And to me, before we get to this level of detail, which I am not going to challenge at all, what this community has to do is answer some of those larger questions that exist. Otherwise, we're just going to become a community of happenstance, grasping here and there, and we're going to be disconnected. And so I understand the study, and I think it's great, but I think our village has some larger questions that we have to address before we get to the questions that Director Retzloff is raising. That's my comments for tonight. Thank you.
Do you have any response to Mr. Hudson's question?
I don't
You're a
think it was-
trustee. You still are.
I mean, that's true. I mean, again, where do the opportunities exist in the housing market? It's pretty clear. And I think if nothing is done about it, the flip side of that is if Germantown just continues on the path that it's on, and other municipalities nearby, figure out a way to identify the issue, then you'll see outmigration. So that's the other side of the equation. Because you will see spillover if there are no new construction homes available here at the price points of certain income qualifying households, but it gets offered somewhere comparable, then you will, then spillover occurs outside, just like you could induce spillover.
So, but Germantown is the only community in Washington County that's grown over the last 10 years. So obviously we're doing something right.
Yeah.
Because our population is growing.
You are, and your location benefits you at the far southeast corner.
Yeah.
Okay, clearly. You're the municipality with the most within the sphere of regional influence. And so that benefits you dramatically from a locational standpoint. And it's a great place to live. I mean, it's, highly regarded and you can go on about the schools, et cetera. And, and once again, everybody's so focused, I think, on the price points, but even as challenging as they are, and even if you have to go 20% higher than what they're showing in the for sale sector, creating a hierarchy for the demographic profiles, like the move down buyers, to have a maintenance free environment that's equal to or slightly below where they're selling their existing home for. You know, the magic in pricing a condominium development is pricing at or slightly below the median resale of where your buyers are being pulled from, because they don't want to trade up, at that stage of their life. So you can still create products at a slightly higher price point in this, and it's not meeting the threshold of demand, but again, to your point, creating a hierarchy of housing products, which, you have a smattering of them right now. You don't have a true hierarchy in this municipality of housing products. You don't.
Trustee Baum?
Can you go back to your slide on with the townhouses?
The picture?
Yes, picture. So in the center row, my left-hand picture, it's a series of townhouses, side by side, row houses. If there's 6 of them in that picture, 5 of them, 6 of them,
Yeah, they're usually done in 6-unit buildings.
6-unit buildings. So if the outer 2 on each side are high-end, $750,000 granite countertops, dual sinks in the bathroom, master suite, all the accoutrements that the step-down buyer wants. The center 2, less desirable units because they're in the center than on an end cap, could be built with plastic laminate countertops, hollow core doors, no fireplace, builder grade cabinetry, so that somebody could get into that house at a lower cost. And then over time, they can upgrade those elements to make it compatible with the other houses in that row later on in time, which is what I know me and my wife did. Is we bought a fixer-upper and they had terrible doors and we had holes in our doors, but then we replaced all the doors with solid wood doors. Is that a way to get into a market?
Yeah, we would not recommend that. We would not recommend that because I think we're of the mindset that everything should have granite countertops, and it can have granite countertops, and that by no way should this be a $700,000 unit. That should be a $350,000 unit, with the ones inside being $275,000 to $300,000. Granite's not that expensive, especially in a townhome unit. The key to this is its density in units per acre, its efficiency to build, okay, that's one of those.
Mhm.
Okay. Bedrooms plus a loft and a bonus room or a flex room behind the garage. That's a way to do it, but then you're really, instead of maintaining the quality of the product and looking at reducing the prices by value engineering, so it's not noticeable by the consumer. It's just value engineered. It's done right with Four Corner Construction. Nobody's taken the approach here, and we see other builders in other markets who will do it. With the rising cost, let me give you an example. With the rising costs of direct construction costs, the suburban Madison market and parts of Milwaukee market was dominated 10 years ago in terms of Class A rental housing, multifamily, with what we call the 3-over parking concept. It's 3 floors of residential apartments over 1 floor of structured enclosed parking, okay? It's a parking garage on the first level, 3 floors, it's an elevator building, okay? When costs went up, the differential behind the cost to do that kind of construction went up so dramatically that the market shifted to direct entry garden apartments, which are $30 a foot less to build. The market completely shifted. So they adjusted because they knew they couldn't just pass along that cost to renter households. They had to shift the products. So the apartment market, and still quality development that you'll see Fiduciary as an example, their Seasons product, which is probably at 6 locations, a very high quality garden apartment product done, But you'll see them doing more of that now because direct construction costs. There's been no adjustment like that in the for sale sector. It's just, let's just ride what the costs are and keep increasing the price. And the market just keeps going down in terms of the volume and the pressure being put on the resale market where prices are going up there. I mean, it's just created such disjointedness because nobody has really figured out how to really do it. And that's by all the elements outside of trying to do something on the surface. I understand what you're saying, but I would recommend trying to maintain the quality and bring the price down behind the scenes in the land, in the density, in the value engineering, and that way, as opposed to the finishes and the, you know, the elevations, et cetera.
So
I mean,
you,
this product will get in a suburban density, 12 units per acre up to 14 kind of to the street if you have a parcel that's like, and that's remarkable. I mean, that all of a sudden you've got that many units with a quality type looking product that's very popular in other markets that has helped bridge the gap. I mean, townhomes would become a staple in Milwaukee if they get introduced because they'll introduce a new construction price point that doesn't exist anymore. That's where it's always succeeded. You know, in Washington, D.C., 50% of all, in those suburbs, 50% of all those units sold are townhomes because single family has gone so high that the only way to meet the new construction is by to offer attached product. There's other markets, Atlanta, it's happening there too. Indianapolis, it's starting to happen there too. So it's just, you know, understanding the hierarchy, and I think is one of the keys to, you know, keeping Germantown with product differentiation.
Mr. Heffley, do you have another question?
Sorry about that. Just a comment. Thank you, Trustee Hudson, for bringing up the effect on the schools. We have to realize that. I'm sorry that our school representative isn't here tonight. She had a meeting. But if I read a lot and heard a lot about rentals. If you bring rentals in, you're bringing in kids. And I don't know how the density, I looked through it, you know, if it's 0.7, 0.8, the realtors can help us, you can help us. So if you bring in 300-400 units of whatever you're talking about, you could be bringing in 200-300 kids, which, as was mentioned earlier, would require building a new elementary school. I mean, these are infrastructure things directly from an impact of this. The other thing that I'll state is, and I moved here 30 years ago, and I live in a place called Affordable Germantown, which I won't tell you the price points, but every house that comes up on my lot is gone with 20 offers in a matter of 3 days because it's at that price point to get in. Every one of my new neighbors, I met them all, came here from somewhere else. They moved here from Milwaukee, they moved here from Tosa, they moved here from higher congestion places to get to the rural feel of Germantown. So whether we like it or not, Germantown has become a destination city. People trade up to get here. I mean, that's a horrible word, and I don't mean to belittle anybody, but you don't start here. You might, if you start here, you might start in one of our developments like Lake Park, because that's what you can afford. And then you build up to maybe from Lake Park West to Lake Park East, which is a little bigger, nicer units. And then you trade into a smaller home, and then you come to Germantown. So, you know, that's kind of what we've evolved to, is a destination city with a rural character. That's what we've evolved to, whether we, you know, like that or not. And the final thing I'll say is, you know, looking back at demographics, which I spent too much time on, this village was growing 8-9% in the 80s, was growing 6-7% in the 90s, and since 2000 through 2021 has grown a net of 1.6% a year. But we are growing where most communities are not, and that is why Slinger and those places, you'll see those rental unit, you know, the bigger construction, the higher density, because in effect, they are kind of catching up to where we were, you know. Hartford had 8,000-9,000 people, now they got 15,000. So they're kind of bringing in the market. They're attractive because of land costs and other reasons. People are moving there because they're filling that demand that we can either choose to fill or not choose to fill. But we're kind of at that place where people, their last home is in Germantown, or their destination home, and this is where I want to retire. So we're getting a lot of people, you know, that have the money and the means to get those nice houses, you know. So you go hang out at Grandma and Grandpa's house with all the nice goodies. So whether we believe it or not, we've created it, but that doesn't make it necessarily bad. It's okay to be what I consider a destination city. That's my comment.
Trustee Ball?
Mr. Sedgwick, are there developers out there that you know of that want to do these type of developments in this area? Yeah.
I think, yes, there are, but I think there is a perception in the developer market that Germantown is a hard place to do business. Because it hasn't been very welcoming in the last 20 years. There are things like, I think if you looked at, things like our impact fees are higher, I think, in general than a lot of the communities around us. So it's more expensive generally to do business and to build in Germantown. I think it's gotten better over the last several years since the Great Recession. I think it's improved greatly, but still has somewhat of a reputation out there as being difficult to do business in.
The perception, the cost of raw land, if I were to go buy a farm field, are we the more expensive farm field to buy? Or if I go up to Richfield or up to Jackson, is it a cheaper farm field up there?
I mean, it's all about location, right? It depends, is a quick answer, but probably closer to Germantown, more expensive. I think that's why you are seeing more happening in Jackson and in some of the areas north. Yeah, because we are an inner ring. We're no longer an outer ring community. We're getting to be a sort of an inner ring community. So land is becoming more scarce and pricing reflects that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the dais? Okay, no, you can stay right here. Open it up to a handful of questions from the audience. And with the idea that this man is here to present a report we asked him to put together with the respect he deserves for the information that he's bringing us of what it would take to do this type of development here. This is what we asked him to do. So that's what he's presenting. He's not proposing it. He's not backing it. He's not a developer. He's a consultant, and that's all he is. So kind of couch and keep your questions along those lines. You want to start?
Do you want me? Doug Lohman, give this to you after I got done with my notes. Okay. Some comments. The floor plans that you showed there did not match the pictures that you went on to, nor did it match the subdivisions. I just want to be clear about that. 13 years ago, I decided to become a professional photographer. The last 7 years, my focus has been architectural photography. And builders tell me that their big issues are permit costs and duplicating professional engineering costs. Everything else is pretty malleable on where it can go and everything. Contractors, I live in a condominium. I have to get a licensed contractor to do something. All the contractors, when they come in my house, let me see your contract, look at their contract. It's going to screw me over. They can screw me over all they want. And I say, you got to change the contract. No, don't want to do business with you. Too bad. Go away. At the ripe old age of 18, I had the extreme wisdom of moving to southern Spain in 1977. Oh man, it was great. Fantastic. I was there from 77 to 80, and then I moved back in 1990. And I was there to 97. 1977, the Supreme Leader, Franco, had been dead for 2 years. I think Spain is the only country in the world that peacefully transitioned from fascism to capitalism. And in Spain, they have these high density houses like nobody's business. Spaniards call them Los Corrales, the corral. And it's really, really dense. I mean, really dense. And that was a product of fascism. And Yeah, it's enough on that. But they transitioned to a capitalist society. What is everybody doing? They're moving out. They're getting out to where they can get some place and they can have everything. Everything I heard you say, it's about lowering prices. It's about taking away things. It's about a race to the bottom on pricing. That's what I heard from the message from you was, that's the sum total of the message I heard from you. Thanks.
Comment?
Is there a question? Question. I mean, that's not what I said, but yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
As you know, most of us are here tonight because we're a little nervous at the plan. The people in Germantown, the large percentage of them don't want this plan. We like it here the way it is. And when you grow, you need to grow according to how the people grow and things happen, and you pursue developers to build. And the gentleman was right about schools. When you have rental units, you're looking at it looks at 2.9 kids per unit. That's a lot of kids. You have to build roads and schools, and taxes are going to go up to pay for all this. And that's what most of us like it here for. First of all, we like the community, the quietness of it right now, and we don't want the change. You can change, but it should be done, and the taxpayers are paying for this. And we don't get considered for a lot of this. We're not even asked. And so I'm glad we have a good crowd here tonight, and I'd like to see them more come because we're fighting to keep our community the way it is. And your developing is nice, but you know what? I look at the rental units here, and unless the landlords are encouraged to fix them, they don't care. They're after their money, and it's sad. So that I think I'm speaking for most of the people in Germantown. 68% of them don't want the plan. And I think they should be respected and let it grow the way we would like it to grow as people who are subsidizing this community. Thank you.
Any other questions for the gentleman?
So with the introduction of lower income housing brought into a community, one, how would that affect current property prices? Two, how is that going to affect crime rates that happen in the village of Germantown, seeing as we are right on the border of a high crime community with the city of Milwaukee? We share a border with Milwaukee. Crime rates, with the growth in the last 15, 16 years, population's gone up by 10, 11,000. Calls for service for our police department have gone up also significantly. So how is that going to affect the village?
Yeah, we did not study low income housing. We excluded all that. This is market rate housing.
Lower income housing than what is currently available in the village of Germantown is what you're offering.
Yeah, but it's appealing to the bulk of the incomes excludes lower income. So I don't see.
Okay, so you're
I
going
don't
to
see where it impacts crime at all. It's
So,
market rate.
Well,
housing.
bringing in more population with a lower median income than what is currently in the village
Those new
is
construction
introduction of
homes
crime.
are equivalent to your resale market. So how would it be any different? They're equivalent to the resale market. They're just coming below where the new construction market has gone. So you're offering new construction product that's equal to your resale sector. It's no different. than
Okay,
who are-
so either way, you're still introducing a larger population. So if you want to bring us from 20,000 to 30,000, that's going to be another.
Again,
another
I'm not
significant
bringing
increase
you
in crime.
anywhere.
Well,
This is a
your proposal,
study-
this is
this
what
a
your proposal.
study. No, this is a study to identify what housing opportunities exist.
So did your study?
And this market, not unlike any other market, this is what exists. Now,
Did the study?
the village has to wrestle with, you know, what it means in terms of traffic, what it means in terms of schools. That is, but the housing opportunity exists. These housing opportunities are, and they can be achieved through all the things that we talked about. So it's not a, put it this way, it's not a plan or a development I'm proposing.
He's fulfilling a request, our request, to say what it would take to put this type of housing in this.
Already stretched out
We're not proposing any growth. What we asked for was a study. If we were going to be looking at this, we asked for what type of housing would be available or what would it take if we would look at that as an option. That's all he's presenting is that information that was requested. There's no plan for this. It's merely an informational request in regards to trying to keep those that are in this community either within it or those that want to come to it to be able to afford it. And that's what he's presenting to us. This is the market area that he's going to be walking within.
President Walter, may I interject? I'm the one that requested this study. It was paid for by Washington County. So I requested this study because I was curious about it. And we were being pushed from the county, to check out if there were spots available for next gen housing. Nobody on this board is saying that they're pro next gen housing or against it. This is just for informational purposes. And then I decided, along with President Walter and Trustee Baum and everybody else, that it would be good to have us come together as the Economic Development Commission and the Planning Commission to just discuss it. That's all. There are absolutely no plans in the work whatsoever.
Yeah, absolutely.
We can't even think about how to move forward with this right now because that would be so much incredible planning years forth. We're not planning anything. And if we were, it's public knowledge. There's nothing in the plans as of right now.
Currently, there isn't even a zoning code that fits a lot of what the development was that he was showing. There's no lot size that's allowable at the size that he was showing. The smallest lot that you're going to find in Germantown is probably Blackstone Creek. Those houses that face the high school were smaller lots. And that was probably one of the smallest lots that at that time was considered experimental and a condition of, I think, of the economics of that development. But it was something that was proposed and brought forward and did sell quickly. But that's probably the smallest lot size we currently have within Germantown of any zoning code that would be allowable for that. All right, is it a question? Okay, just.
I lived here for 1 year. Germantown was 6,000. I went to high school here. I went to every school here. My grandkids go here. My cousins went here. And Germantown has grown. Houses sell in 1 day by my dad last week. He lives in the preserve. 1 day, a neighbor house sold at above asking price. We don't have any problems here. We're getting more crime here. We just voted in more police officers and another addition to the fire department in the last election, which was a few weeks ago. It's just going to get to be, like he said, we're going to need more police officers, more fire departments, and we don't need any more kids in the school, even though they said the population's going down. I went to school, there was 375 kids in my class. I went to school with Rick Miller, who was class president. So I don't see why we would have to grow here and keep adding on. I moved here because I like to be in the country. I moved out to Maple Road where there's 5-acre lots. And that for one time they made them smaller, so my lot's under an acre. In the 70s, they allowed it for a short time to build houses on our road at a smaller lot size. But I thought this was for the $20,000 or whatever towards a house that they were trying to move these in here. Like where they were going to have to work to pay it off or something.
It's changed so often that I don't know what the definition is. All right, just a couple more questions. Sir, you have a question?
Thank you. So as someone who grew up here, born and raised, I have had friends who have been, priced out of the area. I know you said with the townhouses in particular, it's about 6 to 7 per acre. In your professional opinion, whether you have data to back it up or not, is there a market for even more dense housing for that?
No, the townhomes I showed you, the rear load are 12 to 13.
12 to 13, excuse me. Is there a market for more density out of curiosity? Do you think that would sell well?
There's not a product line really that can achieve that without going to mid-density condominiums and that construction costs is that particular product line. It's so, first of all, it's a market that went away in 2008 and hasn't come back any time. And the construction costs that it would be moot to recommend that. So really the best dense product line you can start with is what we call a court, that the product, there was a elevation example, there was a floor plan example of it.
The four corner was one.
Yeah, it's a 3-story, they call it a courtyard townhome because 2 buildings are meant to face each other, create a greenway between them. So it's aesthetically appealing. The alleyways are kind of hidden with landscaping, and it's the best density you can get really for a product line that can be done at what I would consider a reasonable construction cost if all the boxes are checked.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Hi, my comment, first of all, is I really feel like this would take away from the charm that Germantown currently has. Like, I don't feel that any of these kind of housing units fit into anywhere that I've seen, and I've lived here for 14 years. My biggest concern is the schools, and it really bothers me because in your entire discussion, I didn't hear one mention of schools capacity. It's not even at the elementary level. Those then students would flow into our one middle school and into our one high school. There's no mention of that, and I don't understand how you could put a report out like this without addressing that key issue. I have 3 kids in this school district, and to me, it's a major concern.
Yeah, so again, that's an issue like traffic that we don't study. It's something that has to be taken into consideration when considering the scale of what we're recommending. Okay, what kind of scale are we recommending? You're seeing a presentation of all these homes and you're thinking 1,000 homes. Well, no, it's what scale are you recommending? How gradual is it occurring? It's different. This is a study to say that there is such a discrepancy between the resale sector and new construction that that there's this void that exists that could be filled. And I'm not telling you have to fill it. It's just that's the reality of the marketplace. And by no way would these, in our opinion, would these products deplete the charm of Germantown. They are excellent housing products and done in communities where they're just wonderful residential environments.
All right, I'm going to go with 2 more questions, one from this gentleman, and then I'm going to give the mic to Mr. Nash. I don't know, it might be a mistake. Get it.
I'm curious, why can't we let housing growth be organic? Why are we trying to force this? Why do we want to have to create new infrastructure, raise taxes, give TIFs? Why do we want to have to do all that? That's one question. 2, all those places you talked about that had those row houses, I don't think anybody in this room would want to live in any of those areas. In Atlanta, in Washington, D.C., the population density, I used to live where your office is in Schaumburg. I moved here because of the traffic there, and you're suggesting we move that traffic here.
Again, it's scale. We're not recommending 1,000 units.
President Walter, can I respond, please? Can I respond?
And also, yeah, I mean, go ahead.
Sure. I am born and raised in Germantown. I live 4 houses down from my childhood home. I've lived in 3 houses in the same exact subdivision. I'm currently raising my children in the same subdivision that I was raised in. I went through all of the schools here in Germantown. Could I afford a house in Germantown right away when I graduated high school? Absolutely not. Where did I buy? First, I lived in Lake Park West. That was my first house, right? Right? See? So I bought my first place. That was the only place I could afford in Germantown was Lake Park West. Then I moved out of Lake Park West into Lake Park East because we had a growing family. We soon outgrew that and then were able to finally buy a house. This is my story. I was not able to buy a house in my subdivision until it was many years later. The opportunity to give somebody else like that, who was my age at the time, to buy in Germantown is absolutely impossible. You can't find a condo in Lake Park West or East for sale at all. You cannot. There are no condos in Germantown that are affordable for people hardworking like me, not low income, not trashy, not getting the police called, just trying to live in Germantown where I grew up. There is a disparity of housing that is available in Germantown right now. We cannot dispute that. What I'm asking you guys to keep an open mind about is maybe we can take down some of the very decaying rentals in the village and bring them up and make them look nicer. Would that, I mean, could you guys really be mad at me if I said I want to take down all of the apartments across the street from the post office? Well, what, we need this study. That's what it's for.
So the response to the organic again is that you're not proposing or pushing a certain development, you're just showing a market that could
Again,
be
I think
excess.
from the essence of all the questions, they revolve around a specific plan. Until that would be developed where you can actually say, okay, we're going to try this to create some differentiated housing product on this community. Then you study the impact on schools. Then you study the impact on traffic. It's going to have 120 units, and that's what it's going to be. This is a study to say that there's a market for everything going on here in Germantown, but it just means your 1% growth annually. That's just a reality. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just saying there's an opportunity to improve that and create housing, new construction housing opportunities with thinking differently.
All that stuff in, you still think Germantown will be that desirable place? You're gonna have all that traffic, you're gonna, all of you still.
You're saying I can't answer that question because we're not talking about scale right now. So we don't know. There's no scale to address it.
Well, thank you for being here, Trustee Pieper. Thank you for this mess that you've created. You're certainly passionate about what you do. I'll tell you that. I've had the opportunity to see a development like you proposed on 800 acres in Prospect, Kentucky, called Norton Commons. I'm sure you're familiar with it. It is lovely. It is 800 acres on top of 800 acres on top of 800 acres, and it is lovely. They built this thing out, and it's great. It's right on the highway. It's right on the highway, all right? And it works. Part of the development was the schools, the church, the shopping, all the shops. It's really, really lovely. Unfortunately, I don't think that's Germantown. The interesting thing is, and so my question to you, and I'm sure you have, did you read the 2050 comprehensive plan? The first thing it says here, new housing should contribute to Germantown's community character and build on village assets, okay? Understanding Germantown, you know, as I was looking through all of the names on the list from the email that I had gotten, and all right, who are you talking to? I think in West Bend, there was one realtor. Germantown, you haven't spoken to any. There's at least 10 agents that live in the village that are very prolific in selling real estate that have got a lot of opinions because we sell all your houses. I have for the last quarter century. And so we have opinions. And I had to find out through various sources that this is going to happen, the whole 9 yards. And we've heard things about next gen housing. But I'm kind of surprised that nobody's reached out to the inner Germantown to see what we really feel, because I think that's what you're hearing, is that it's like we're almost feeling like we're being just slapped in the face. We don't even know it's coming. You know, by my house, they want to put 650 units on 60 acres, and it's like, that ain't going to work. It's just not. That density's too high. But I'm just surprised that you know, again, I agree. The one thing I definitely agree with you is value design. That's an amazing, amazing concept. And I think that would work. Do we all need basements? Probably not. To the four corners, that's a great concept, worthy of bringing forward. Absolutely 100%. Okay. Too many hips, too many this, too many that, it adds up the cost. So that you're right on the money. But I do think going forward, you really should maybe, the village here could say, hey, well, we know these influencers, not because they're influenced per se, but because they're involved in the community. We've watched it grow in the last 25 years. And how can we implement segments of this? Because it sounds like it's coming like a big, like it's all going to happen. We just don't have the infrastructure. And I think consultants such as yourself need to understand Germantown and how it evolved and why these things haven't happened. Like Menominee Falls is doing a terrific job. They got the infrastructure, they're right in the highway. It's just a different community and how it was originally, just by happenstance, Germantown was never designed like Menominee Falls. So we can't do the things that they've done. You know, MMSD came up and purchased hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of acres, rightfully so, for stormwater management, right? But that takes out a lot. There is a need. Sitting with a fellow realtor, we're like, yeah, we need more houses. We need more houses, but we don't need 600 units on 60 acres because that does not contribute to Germantown's community character and build on village assets. If you want to see the village, that was in a planning commission that was brought forth. It's not going forward, but that was an example that it was a consultation. Yeah. Thank you.
To set the stage for the next level, which is, this was purely market research driven, not consumer research. Those are next stages, okay, to, community engagement. And this is not, again, there's no property, there's no plan. This was simply to identify, and now it gets vetted. And the one thing that I just, in studying the numbers so closely, I really think there's no denying the opportunity that exists. And that is what is presented here, is the opportunity that exists. Moving it to the next level on a piece of property and doing something about it is out of my hands. It's just that here's what your opportunity is.
There's a few of those, yeah.
And yet those are unaffordable for younger people to live in right now. Because there's not enough housing.
Okay. All right. So we're going to move forward into the next item. I do appreciate everybody's input. I do appreciate you here to listen to Mr. Dorshing's study of what was requested. Again, there's no plans going forward. There's no designated property for a 600 unit development or anything of that nature. It's merely information to bring forward as to what type of housing needs are out there, what type of housing would sell, and at what demographic it would present itself to. So again, we thank you for coming here tonight and representing this information to us. I also thank you for your patience in handling everybody's questions and coming with the good answers that would help present what you are representing and what the reasons were that you put this report together. So thank you for that. I appreciate it.
It was paid for by Washington County. We did not pay any of this. Washington County had already budgeted. I think it was maybe about
24,000.
$24,000.
total, because we did go back to them and ask them for more information. But this was completely paid for by Washington County with money that they had budgeted for communities. Yes,
It was
it's still our money, but you
it
can
was
take that up
ARPA
with
funds.
Washington County because that was not
Funds.
something that we had control of or what
It's everybody's money. I mean, it's all the same.
voted for them to put into their budget.
Yeah.
And other communities in Washington County have also had this study done. It was recommended to me by Joshua Showman to have this done for Germantown for informational purposes.
I don't think that's a question for me.
That's not even a question for this gentleman. All right. Anything else? Anything else on the dais for item A? Mr. Dorshing, thank you.
Thank you.
Next item under new business is item B. Next step, discussion of current Village of Germantown 2050 plan housing policies, programs, and initiatives, and possible need for a comprehensive housing policy.
I make a motion to table this
I'll second that.
or postpone it, I mean.
Motion made and seconded to postpone. Discussion on the motion. Trustee Peeper?
We don't have any plans in motion right now. I think it's premature and I think we can put this for another time when there are plans or we have something in mind to redevelop.
I think that what Planner Retzloff had was to present possible next steps, not to start to hammer out anything in regards to housing policies, programs, initiatives, or possible need for a comprehensive housing policy. I think he merely was going to start laying out the steps.
Yes, that's true. Given the time, I agree with tabling it, but the intention is to move in the direction of creating a more specific housing policy for the Village of Germantown.
Whether it be
Dealing
this.
with a wide variety of things,
Mhm.
including, touching on how do we want to deal with tiny houses? How do we want to deal with shipping containers being converted into houses? How are we going to deal with the density issues that we have? A whole gamut of things that go into and beyond the rather general portrayal of a goal in our housing element of our comprehensive plan. But I also wanted to make it clear by handing this information out that we do have a goal and we do have some programs and some things that we are putting in motion to help us move towards addressing our housing issues in the Village of Germantown. I've heard comments for the last year and a half that suggest that, for example, exploring next generation housing is some sort of conspiracy theory that staff has embarked on, when in fact it's embedded deeply in our 2050 plan, including the notion of looking into it, asking questions, being part of the Washington County community, and in fact, leveraging some of their money to give us an insight into our Germantown market, real estate market, that we can use for our own benefit.
Exactly.
Further discussion on the motion to postpone. Mr. Heffley?
I feel that we owe the people that are here. There's a large group here. If they're here for citizen comment to say what they think, I think we need to hear them out. I think some of them came here because of the 2050 plan, that we were going to lay out some basic things. I am not surprised at all that the discussion before went on as it did, because there's obviously concern in this room. So just tabling things and say, we'll get back to it later, I don't think that's a fair use of their time, who sat here and wanted to make comments. So if you want to table it, they should be, I'm going to say no, but if you want to table it, I want to make sure that they get a chance to do citizen comments above and beyond what they did, because only 5 or 6 people got to speak.
Well, we still have on the agenda citizen input and public appearance, which is not going to be removed as part of it. Right now, we're in new business.
I was making sure, Chairman.
Okay, absolutely. Trustee Peeper?
I understand with the citizen input. I do get that. But everybody's commenting on something that there is no plans for right now. This was an informational study that was done. It's not that I don't want to hear everybody's input. Of course I do. And we do hear them. They can come to any meeting, but there is no plans right now. So for you to say that is kind of misled.
Further discussion on a motion to postpone. Mr. Sedgwick?
I just want to make sure I'm clear. Is there actually a presentation that you were going to make, Jeff, for us to discuss and consider, or is it just open, free for all discussion?
Some plan, goals and programs, something we'll pick up later.
Okay, good.
Trustee Hudson? Almost went Mr., sorry.
Those days are coming. Thank you. The reason I seconded the motion is this is an extraordinarily important discussion. And we've been here for 2 hours and 5 minutes. And I think, again, that our entire community needs to be involved. And I want to give that the time and the deliberation that a topic of this importance deserves. And I think to begin this discussion at 25 minutes to 9 is frankly to do it a disservice, because this discussion on this agenda could go on for hours, and it deserves to go on for hours. That is my reason for seconding. Thank you.
Further discussion on the motion to postpone new business item B? No further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
One opposed. This will be postponed. Next item on our agenda is citizen input and public appearance on items that are not subject to a public hearing. There's no public hearings obviously on tonight's agenda. But if there's anyone that wishes to participate in citizen input or public appearance, whether you're in the audience or joining us via WebEx, all I would ask is you fill out a yellow slip of paper if you're within the audience. And if you're on WebEx, please make your intentions known so that you can be recognized. Citizen input, public appearance.
Hello.
Hello.
Sarah Larson, Butternut Road in Germantown. Sorry if this is a little bit disjointed, and I certainly do not mean any disrespect on this. If you go to the Tracy Cross webpage, this is what it says. Our extensive experience in the home building market enables us to perform as more than just market researchers. We are marketing consultants who are able to marry product to the data that emerges from our research. Well, I think we've all heard tonight how they are trying to marry product to their research. And it really makes me question motives and development, especially when Ms. Pieper was quite emotionally adamant about wanting to not have citizen input on this. And so there was this report, the Tracy report, that had 12 properties listed on here. So let me ask this panel here. Can anyone say that they do not have an interest in one of the parcels on this, whether it be an ownership interest, a development interest? I think let's talk about some of the names on this property here. Pilgrim Road and Mequon Road, Blackstone Creek Golf Course, the Grossnick parcel, Fond du Lac Avenue and Pilgrim. So does anyone here on this panel have any interest in perhaps any one of those properties that I mentioned? Anyone? Any ownership?
We're not allowed to
connection.
respond to public comment.
We can respond and answer questions, but
I think there's someone on the panel that perhaps has some sort of interest or connection to one of those parcels. Anyone want to say?
If you're accusing somebody of impropriety, why don't you just do it?
I also have a home in Germantown that I've lived in for over 25 years, so I think I have a broader interest in the village than just what you're accusing me of.
I wouldn't say it is an accusation. I'm saying if your parcel is listed on here as a potential for development for housing at some point, that is a conflict of interest. And so I think as we're talking about housing, if there could be any kind of financial gain with development, that should be disclosed. I'm not saying necessarily that you should not be seated on this commission, but I'm saying full disclosure to people. And for the adamant denial about the village not considering anything, the Grossnick property, I would like the village to look at the past 6 or 8 months of village board meetings and closed sessions where the negotiations for the Grossnick property have been on that agenda. And now on a recent agenda, the negotiation and consideration of properties in the Mequon Center. So I think there's a lot of denial, which ends up causing suspicion based on the part of the community.
it's a negotiation on the Grossnick property was for a price only, for a position, so that's why it's closed session. Any other further steps that would be made on that property would be done in open session and with public hearing.
But then, okay, who on the public has authorized the purchase of that property? And if you're negotiating on a property, wouldn't the village want, citizens want to know what your intended use for the purchase of that property is, as well as the consideration of all of
I
those
can tell you
parcels
what
that fall
what the
within
purpose
this?
of not having it do is turn into a parking lot that would be purchased by Gales. That's one of the things that was stopped. Another reason that we were looking at it was to help maintain some sort of authenticity to the major older portion of downtown, and also stop it from having storage units on it that wasn't a development that we wanted to do it, or senior housing as well. The purpose is not for the village to develop it. The purpose is for it to secure it so that other developers don't use it for things that are not desirable in that area.
So then the appraisals, looking at what the potential revenue
time is
or
up.
land use would be, are irrelevant? I'm sorry.
Appraisals of what it was versus at what time it was sold. We actually purchased it for less than appraisal price.
No, the village conducted appraisals on the property. And,
As would anybody that would be purchasing property.
and when it says for age-restricted housing as the purpose of consideration for value,
Not,
That is not true.
it's not true.
it's in the appraisal report,
Really?
but I will pull up the report and I will show you that statement.
You're
within the
accusing
report.
us of something that isn't happening. There are no plans for that property besides what we've been negotiating for a price and transfer of title, period.
Well, I think then perhaps when citizens ask a question during citizen comment, maybe before going into closed session, the board addressing those questions might be helpful.
It depends on what the questions are in regards to, and most closed sessions are for a negotiation purpose or for discussions of employee that doesn't involve the public in regards to whether it be disciplinary
I'm
or subject to increase or extending an offer.
I'm fully.
As you
aware
are
of that.
fully aware, as sitting on a school board previously, you are fully aware of what the disclosures of closed session are. So to come here and accuse us of having a byline for those closed sessions is completely wrong.
But my question, when Mr. Baum was sitting in for you, was knowing that those were closed session items, I asked for clarification that would not have breached anything about closed session. It was clarification on those properties that you were discussing,
Clarification of what?
what the intended use would be.
There isn't one.
Well, then that should be equally concerning to the citizens if we're going to just randomly buy property. And if Gales wanted that property for a parking lot, they would have bought it long ago since it's already been on the market for quite some time. But I'm over my time, so thank you.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Actually, it was my idea that brought the Grosnick property to the board, which I even voted no towards the end of it. And it is to rebuild our downtown because Gales has taken over all of our downtown. We don't have a downtown. And I didn't want to see a developer come snatch that up and put apartments, next gen housing, put storage lockers, make it a parking lot for Gales because that's what they've been doing with all the land in downtown. So my dream that I actually joined this board for was to redo our downtown, to get our downtown back because we don't have it anymore. And Germantown is deteriorating. So yes, you can blame me all you want. And I never said, you can correct this. I never said, I don't want to hear public comment. Actually, I said the reverse to that.
Anyone else wishing to come forward for citizen input or public appearance at this time? Take a breath.
Right here. I'll take it.
I gave the last time I was here where I was told that it was really not at the time, but I really feel like I'm going to repeat again because I feel like this is the right time. I missed the school board meeting for this, so thank you for letting me speak. We, the people of Germantown, and I am referring to all of the people I have spoken with, do not want workforce housing built in any capacity, especially high-density developments in this village. I have lived here for 14 years. I have paid my mortgage, improved my property, raised my children here. I have built equity in my property. And similar to you, I mean, I started off, I'll just side here, note here, I started off buying a small condo, buying a larger condo, buying my house, but I worked for that. And it took me years to get there. And I don't see anything wrong with that. That's the way That's the way the world works. So anyway, I refuse to see it all go to be lost so that a developer can deepen their own pockets and ruin this beautiful community. We do not want this village turned into the likes of Brown Deer with increased crime and declining property values, which I also lived in Brown Deer at one point in time and witnessed that happen. The developer doesn't care about us, the people that have built a life here. We also do not have, like I mentioned earlier, capacity at our schools. Not at our elementary, middle, or high school levels. We don't want them at full capacity. I want my kids to get a good education, just like every other parent in this district. If you really want to know how the people here in Germantown feel in the surrounding areas that attend the schools, really what you need to do is put it on a voting ballot. We all live here. We all should have a voice and decide what we need for this village and how we want to see it grow. It's too big to be decided by this panel here and the few people in this room. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to come forward at this time for citizen input or public appearance? Yes, sir.
My name is Andy Buzalaki, Little Run, Lilac, and I appreciate the studies and I'm all for development. But I lived 30 years of my life in a very high density neighborhood, very high density, east side of Milwaukee. Anyways, so I work Saturdays and most Sundays to build a affordable house out here, and that's why I came out here. So this one gentleman was talking about a destination city. And I'm not against development. I'm not against anything or any of you board members or anything else. But the reason I came to Germantown was because it was a peaceful community. That's all.
Okay.
I'd like to see it stay that way.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else who wishes to come forward for citizen input or public appearance? Thank you.
Melanie Smythe, N140W17938 Cedar Lane. So I thought that this presentation was good. It was better than in person than the last time the information was presented, and hopefully the recording is a whole recording this time. I appreciate the comments from Trustee Hudson. I do think that it's going to take a long time for any of this to come to fruition. I don't think it is something that needs to be talked about. I do think it was a mistake to have included all of those properties listed in the report, because it does look like there's some plans in there for activity to happen. And if you're to be believed, that's not supposed to happen. Now, speaking of the 2050 plan, the whole 2050 plan should probably be reopened as part of the conversations around this, because this is the part of the 2050 plan that was not finished when we talk about where are the neighborhood meetings. And this ties into that, in my view. So if you want to go forward, before you start changing zoning and things like that, you should have the neighborhood meetings. This information can be tied into that. I do agree that there's a way to start with the maybe not so great properties and rentals. That makes sense if we're trying to do it. It's going to take a long time. A lot of people will have to get on board with that. It may not happen in the way that people think here, but there needs to be honesty. And right now, there isn't trust. And that's why you have a lot of people who object to things, because they don't trust, because the neighborhood meetings didn't happen. The 2050 plan is viewed as not being finished. There are apparent conflicts on boards. I mean, there's lots of stuff that's going on here that's not, people don't trust. So fix those things, then we can start talking, then maybe we can start doing some of these things. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else who wishes to come forward at this time for citizen input or public appearance?
Good evening, commissioners. Thanks for having the Tracy Cross guy here. That was, it was better to see people in person for any of these presentations. I think it should be a requirement. Here, listening to somebody over the squawk box is not the ideal way to gain knowledge. I think that I'm here, Jan Miller, Winsong Circle West, because I hear from residents that they want to be a bigger part of the voice. We've lived here. We've made changes to afford to live here. We love the place. We like our parks. We like our library. We love the community. We love our neighbors. And we want to protect and keep it the way it is. And part of the 2050 plan is really to create that neighborhood feeling. So I implore you to start, and Mr. Baum, you've said several times, we haven't had those neighborhood meetings yet. This is a great opportunity for this commission and other commissions to do that. And one of the suggestions I have, we went through an extensive program to get the 2050 comprehensive plan passed, and actually Grafe did that for us. If you want to continue to build on that, perhaps that might be a good place to start. But you need to have neighborhood meetings. People are going to keep coming here, filling the village hall and voicing their opinions. And they have valid opinions. They all live here. They're here for a reason. So please listen. Thank you.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time for citizen input or public appearance?
Nope, you can't talk.
You can fill one out after.
Should be one of the.
Right on the podium there underneath, I think.
Okay. All right. Well, in any event, Kevin Nash, West 140 North 10828 Country Air Drive. So we've been here 27 years and we've seen the village grow. But I will say what Jan said, the last planning commission, it's like far be it for me to tell somebody else what to do with their land. It's their land. They want to sell, they can sell it. They want to put development, they're going to develop it. But now it's incumbent upon the village to take a look at that plan and say, yeah, I think we need to tweak it. You know, again, the reason, a couple of things as I'm looking at Trustee Pieper here, there is a certain amount of mistrust for sure. And I think it does revolve around the Grosnick property. I don't know anything about it, but there's distrust. So there has been a lack of transparency for whatever reason. It is what it is. And then my eyes were open to this 60 acres down the street from me. Really? You guys are proposing, it's proposed, that's what the developer wants because he can cash in on it. But that's an awful lot. I think we really, I think what Jan Miller had said is that we really do want to preserve the essence of Germantown. And if you want to see it, come to Oktoberfest, look for me, I'll get you a beverage of your choice. Thank you.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else who wishes to come forward at this time for citizen input or public appearance? Anyone else? Any announcements to make? It's right here. No announcements? All right, we can be adjourned. Thank you all for coming tonight. Thank you all for watching, and have a good night.
Okay, well.